Welcome to our study on the book of Romans. This is the Sonship Review Part 10, and this is session 70. At this point right here, anybody want to say anything about the relationship prayer that we've been engaged in for several weeks now? You are doing that, yes? Okay. So, anybody want to say anything about that?
Well, my take on that is it's kind of like a self-teaching program because you're reviewing everything
Okay.
and you're getting a better understanding of it. In other words, you're teaching yourself what you've already learned.
Okay, so by going through that, you're getting a better understanding of all those things that we've been through. Okay. Okay. All right. Anybody else?
To pick up on what he said, it is moving from year to year. For me,
Okay.
yeah.
Moving it from here to here. Very good. All right. Anybody else? Keep going. You know, we're going to be back up on Romans 12 here before you know it. And remember, the mercies are the basis by which we'll be able to really and truly present our body as a living sacrifice. So the more that's working in us, the better that will be.
You know, one of the things I'm understanding, Mike, as I go through this, what God did for His Son and sacrificed His Son for us, and I think at the same time how I feel about my own children, what I would do for them, makes me understand that there's nothing that God's not willing to do for us so that we succeed. You know?
That's really good. I'm going to repeat that because they can't hear it on the only thing they see is me standing here listening. So you were saying it made you think about that. Let's see how you said that. It makes you think about that there isn't anything that God wouldn't do in order for us to succeed at this.
Because I feel the same way about my own children. So I can put myself in His place and with the stuff that He's already done, makes me understand that there's basically nothing He wouldn't do to see that we succeed.
I'm really glad that you said that because when we get into Romans 12, before we actually look at that first verse, do you remember those 5 probing questions back in Romans 8 that we covered? It's been a while back now. One of those is saying the very thing that Clifford is talking about, that God spared not His own Son, but delivered Him up for us all. How shall He not with Him freely give us all things? Look, if He's gone to the trouble to give His own Son in order for us to be successful with this, Paul is making the statement, there's not anything He's holding back. You know, He's already given the biggest thing He could give. So that's perfect to say it that way. That means that principle is working in you. So when we review that real quickly, you can just sleep during that one because you got that. Yeah, okay, all right. Okay, so, all right. So I just wanted to probe everybody about that a little bit. Keep going in that relationship prayer. And you should keep going after you get to Romans 12. That should continue to be a part of your prayer life. You'll just be adding these other kinds of prayer to it. Okay, so let's kind of recap everything that we did in this first lesson. Now I'm going to move you into something completely different before we get into adversity prayer. You'll see what that is as we go. But this kind of praying that we're talking about now is about the education, the doctrine that we're going to be learning. And that we're going to get familiar with it. We're going to be talking to our Heavenly Father about it. That is part of the process that's going to move that doctrine from our minds as just information to in our hearts so that we can begin to live out of that on a daily basis. That's exactly where we want to go. And so, by the way, if anybody needs to refresh their memory about, because this is the area where we talked about praying without ceasing, to have this prayer running in the background all day long, so you're always kind of in that mode of talking to your Heavenly Father and evaluating the things that you're doing in light of the doctrine. If you need a refresher on that, that is going to be back in sessions 39 to 44. And so if you need to go back and look at that again, I'm giving you that so you can locate that pretty easily instead of just going through a big pile of notes. The more we do this, the more natural it will become, the more our prayer life will fall into place. It won't happen instantly, it won't happen magically, it's all part of a process, and prayer, of course, is a big part of that. Now we're coming to the place where I was going to talk to you, and in your notes, it probably says adversity prayer. Or that is talking about how in the world we pray when we're going through all of the different sufferings and tribulations of life. And there's two major kinds of suffering that take place for the believer. One, I know you know these, the sufferings of this present time. That's what the Bible calls it. And the second one is the sufferings of Christ. You already know what those are, but just for those that are watching the recordings, in case they don't know, the sufferings of this present time are the kinds of things that take place just because we live in a fallen world. God is not doing it to us. It is where you're at the light and the guy's not paying attention, he rear ends you, and now you got whiplash, and now your neck is hurting. You fall off a ladder, you break your arm. You know what? You get pneumonia, and now you're sick, and you're running a fever. You're diagnosed with some dread disease or something like that. That is the sufferings of this present time. It doesn't matter if you're a believer in Jesus Christ or if you're an unbeliever. Everybody gets those. And it doesn't, I mean, there's nothing about it. That's why you can be in a horrendous accident and one guy walks out and the other guy goes to the hospital. That is just the way those things happen. That's not God supernaturally causing this guy to walk away or supernaturally causing this guy to go to be injured. That's just the way it works in life. Those things sometimes happen for a period of time and then they go away. Sometimes they get worse and lead to other things, and sometimes you just get better. That's the way. And so what should you do in the event of those things? If you break your arm, go get it set. If you get pneumonia, then do the things to help yourself get well. If you get something and you need antibiotics, go get the antibiotics. That's how that happens. Now let's talk about the second kind, and that is the sufferings of Christ. The sufferings of Christ are the specific things that are orchestrated by the adversary to get you to stop your sonship life. Those do not happen to us in the very beginning. That's not what's going on. I know that people say, look, I'm going to do it this way. 2 years ago in February when I had that stroke, someone wrote to me and said, I see that Satan is really attacking you. That was not the satanic attack. You can say, you guys must be getting into the place now where the devil is really upset with y'all and he's trying to stop it. That is not the means that Satan uses to accomplish that. That's not it. Those sufferings, this is what I'm going to do. We're going to spend the rest of this session talking about these sufferings. So, in doing that, I am going to show you. Now, I had another handout that I actually wanted to give you, and I'll give it to you next week because I know for sure that we're not going to get through this in this session alone. But I wanted to lay the groundwork today and then give you that handout next week that'll kind of encapsulate, although you do have this in your notes. But I kind of have this in an outline form where it's real easy to see the doctrinal progression of Paul's epistles. And this is really important because this is the subject matter, the sufferings of Christ. And I want to show that to you. And so, just to say it, let me show you how the sufferings of Christ take place. They always come in three aspects. There's three components, and they always happen in the same order. So here they are. And that is the end of my PowerPoint. Okay. I didn't realize that I put that on a separate PowerPoint, and I didn't bring it with me. So, I will write it on the board. Oh, brother. You already know part of this. When we talk about the satanic attacks of the policy of evil, when we talk about the satanic attacks of the policy of evil, there is always three components to that. The first one is to attack the message. Mark, is this red showing up on the screen? Okay. The first one is to attack the message. That is always the first thing that Satan does. There's a reason for that, and we'll talk about it in just a moment. The second one is to attack the messenger. In fact, let me just talk about it as we go, and that way it'll make sense. What Satan wants to do by attacking the message is get you to change your message so that it lines up with the counterfeit that he has designed for the world. And he would rather than have you just quit talking, he would rather have you promoting his counterfeit. So he is going to attack the message so that we change our minds from what we learned in the truth of the Word to now what he wants promoted in the world. He has a substitute, he has a counterfeit, and he would rather have us doing that. If we won't change the message, the next level of attack is to attack us personally. That does not get done through stroke or heart attack. He does not do that by giving you pneumonia. He does not do that by you getting a flat tire. Do you know how you get a flat tire? Because you ran over something that punctured your tire. It's just physics. So look, so he attacks the message. If that fails, he attacks the messenger. Now this one is to get you to just stop talking. If you won't give the wrong message, then he doesn't want you giving any message. So this one is to shut you up. If you will not stop in view of these attacks, then his third is to always do this. Discredit the messenger. And if you're not going to corrupt the message and you're not going to be silenced, then he wants to make sure that everyone else learns things about you that will make them not listen to the message that you are giving, to make them reject that message. That threefold attack is going to be talked about in Paul's epistles over and over and over just that way and in just that order. And so, now let me just back this up just a little bit. When Satan wants to put things to work in this world, he starts out with something that Paul calls this. And you're going to need your Bibles, by the way, because we're going to... No, you have your notes, don't you? I have the verses in your notes. So you can just look at the verses there. He starts off with the course of this world. This is what Satan has put into motion in the world so that people will follow the direction he wants them to go. And this is what and so Ephesians chapter 2, verse 2. Wherein in time past you walked according to the course of this world. And then he tells you where that came from. According to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience. What is the course of this world? Well, without just taking the whole session to talk about that, let me just say that the course of this world is the plan that Satan has put into motion that determines what normal behavior is, and it also makes those who are in step with the course of this world, it makes those who are not in step with that become very obvious, and they become then somehow ostracized or shunned or made fun of or marginalized. I mean, there's a whole lot of words we could use to talk about that. they become obviously abnormal. Another thing the course of this world does is it tells us how we're supposed to spend our time and what things we ought to involve ourselves in. And that happens from the day we're born. We're born into a world where the course of this world, no matter what country you live in, it has created a culture in which certain things are just understood by everyone. And if you don't follow that, the more you don't follow it, the more out of step you will look. And then the more criticism you will get, and the more pressure that will be applied. There's a lot of facets to the course of this world. It ranges from everything. It has something for everyone. It's like a buffet. It doesn't matter what you like. It has something down there that will appeal to you. It ranges from those who are atheists. We don't believe there's a God. Welcome to the course of this world. You have swallowed that aspect. Or the agnostic. I don't know if there's a God. That is part of the course of this world. Or I'm a Buddhist. Welcome to the course of this world. How about this one? No one's going to like this one, but here it is. How about the typical Christian today who thinks God is nothing more than a genie in the bottle to run and do everything that we just conjure up in our own minds that we would like for Him to do? Welcome to the course of this world. But it doesn't have to be religious. It can be as far as business goes. It can be as far as politics goes. And it's in forms of government. It's in philosophies of life. It's even in the philosophy of, this is wonderful, in the Song of Solomon. Oh, I don't want to go back and teach that. But look, in the Song of Solomon, I'm sorry, not in the Song of Solomon, in Ecclesiastes, Solomon wrote Ecclesiastes. And in Ecclesiastes, here's what he does. He takes every major philosophy of life and he shows it to be empty. He shows it to be vanity. And he goes through every single one of them, why people live their lives. He even addresses the philosophy of I have no philosophy. It's genius. And so what he does is he debunks every bit of that to show there is only one real reason for living our life. And that's what the book of Ecclesiastes is about. If you don't understand that, the book looks kind of confusing about that because he talks about everything is vanity and all of that kind of business. Anyway, without going back to teach the book of Ecclesiastes, I'm just saying those are all determined by the course of this world because Satan is taking this world somewhere. Where is he taking it? To the absolute and utter rejection of God. That's where he's taking it. Now, I could say to the absolute and utter rejection of the true and living God. Because as long as you've got another one going, he doesn't really care. He just doesn't want that one. And so the world has gotten to that place before. Can anybody tell me when was the first time that the world got to the place where the world at large had just rejected God? Yeah, the flood. At the time of the flood. Absolutely. So you have 8 people on the boat, and God wipes out the world, and you start again. Can you tell me another time in which the world got to that place where...
At the cross.
All right, Linda's talking about at the Tower of Babel. That was Satan's headquarters for setting up this thing and establishing this. What did you say, Gloria?
At the crucifixion.
Yeah, at the cross is one because, remember, they had already rejected the Father and now they had rejected the Son. The only thing that was left was the rejection of the Spirit, and that's what the first 7 chapters of the book of Acts are about. So they had really gotten to the place where they had done that, and they were worthy of the wrath of God to fall on the world as predicted. But what did God do? In His mercy, instead of pouring out His wrath on the world, He interrupted that program with Israel and He brought about a dispensation of grace, and through the goodness and long-suffering of God, He is offering everyone a chance to be saved. And He is being long-suffering. the world is going to get back there again. And it is heading in that direction. And the thing that is driving it is the course of this world. Within the course of this world, there are some things called, I didn't do that right, some things that the Bible calls the works of darkness. We tend to think that that's just a general term that just applies to every sinful thing, but that's not true. There are actually 3 categories of the works of darkness. Not important for us to list them today, but those 3 categories of the works of darkness, those are the ones that Satan needs in order to bring the world to a place of its utter and absolute rejection of God, to produce a godless world. Why does Satan want to produce a godless world? Why would he want to do that? Yes, that's exactly right. Because he wants to maintain his possession of the heavens and earth. That's what he is after. That will allow him to continue to hold on what he has gotten. Okay. So now, this course of this world is going along, and it is going to, when I first described it to you, I said it's like a snowball at the top of a large, long hill. As it starts to roll downhill, it has its own momentum. It just carries itself. And that means Satan doesn't have to superintend it. It doesn't have to overlook it. It's just moving along, and it's not only gathering in mass, it's gathering speed as well. At this point, folks, the course of this world is so overwhelming that 2 things, well, there's probably 50 things, but 2 main things are happening. It is so prevalent that no one understands they're under its influence because it's all they know from the day they come into this world until the day they die. I think of the movie The Matrix. I'm offering you the blue pill or the red pill. And most people, you know what, they just don't understand, and they're just in it, and they just think that's the way it is. They don't understand this was all designed with something very specific in mind. The second thing about that is, what did I tell you the first thing was? That people don't know what it is. What was the second thing? Did I say it yet? Okay, Linda's saying no, they'll let y'all off the hook about reminding me what it was. What was that? It'll come to me in a second. Anyway, course of this world. Oh, well, here's the thing. And it is meant to put pressure on anyone who steps outside of it, to bring them back into the fold. It is designed to do that. Now, who is the course of this world meant to affect? Everybody. It is the general policy of evil at work. Not these specific aspects, but just generally, this is part of the policy of evil, and it is at work in the world. Do you know... if you learn something with regard to sonship or with regard to the difficult things, prayer or any of those other things, have you ever been around somebody else, maybe somebody in your family, and they were spouting the usual thing that, you know, we all at one time or another have believed and said? And you heard that and you thought, well, I just don't think that's right. And now you're debating, do I say something or not? Well, now look, I'm not asking anyone. In the old days, Mark will understand this. In the old days, the preachers used to say, if you don't say anything, you're a compromiser, you know, and they'd try to pressure you into it. That's always a wonderful motivation. But here's what I've learned. When I hear, do I ever hear anybody say stuff that's not right? Yeah, and some of it comes from y'all. But I don't always feel like, I love that. Y'all, only a couple of y'all enjoyed that. Okay. Look, I hear that stuff all the time. I do. It's always well intended. It's always well intended. But I don't feel obligated, like I did when I was younger. I don't feel obligated to jump in and correct all of that. Now, but if someone asks me, I'll give you an example. There was a guy who used to deliver UPS out to our house. He's a really great guy. He goes to church over in Midland. And in fact, he goes, well, I'd say what church, but if someone heard this and they don't like me, then they would persecute him. But he actually teaches a class at a church in Midland. And he got a hold of my book on rightly dividing the word. And it turned the light on for him. And he got real excited. And he thought, I want to teach this in my class. And so when he would deliver out to the house, I can remember standing out his truck and we'd be talking for 30 minutes. And I'd be going, man, you got to get going. And he'd go, it's Friday, don't worry about it. I mean, he'd just talk. He was a really great guy. Well, so one day I called him up and I said, hey, we're going to go into Midland. You and your wife want to meet us for supper. And he said, yeah. So we met him at Abuelo's over in Midland. Everybody knows where that is, right? Because there's going to be one of those in the third heaven. I'm just saying. And so we get over there, and I really like that. I'd say his name again, but I don't want anybody to locate him. Anyway, so he's a really nice guy. We met his wife for the first time, and so we're sitting there and we're talking. And I said, tell me about how you guys met. I love to hear the stories about how people meet. And I'm sorry, what's going on in my head right now? Okay, never mind. So I love to hear those stories. And so she was talking about they met when they were going to college in El Paso. And she was talking about, and she said, and God put us together. And she said, and I said, okay. And of course, you know what I'm thinking at that point. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, okay, I understand what you're saying. You don't, but I do. And so she says, and here's what happened. And she starts telling the story, which is a series of events that indicate God was evidently creating circumstances that would put them together. And so and my mom didn't like him. And I knew that it was going to have to be God. And we're doing this whole deal, right? And so when she gets through and she goes, and so God was just putting us together. And then she looks at me and she goes, right? And then she just keeps going and I don't say anything. And now Billy's looking at me like, here it comes, here it comes. And I'm not saying a word. I'm being nice. And then she does it again and she goes, and so that's just God, right? And I just smile. And then after a while, she figures out, I'm not saying right. And so she just stops and she goes, it is God, right? And I said, and the rest of the story? And she goes, no, wait. It is God, right? Is it? I went, no. But what's the rest of the story? And she went, no? I said, no, but what's the rest of the story? She says, wait a minute. Wait a minute. It's not God. And now Billy's going, here we go. Check, please. All right, So we sit there for another 45 minutes, and I'm just saying what you already know. I'm trying to put what you have learned in the last 5 years into 45 minutes. And so, and she's just sitting there, and some of those things register with her, and she goes, I always wondered about that. And so at the end, I said, but look, now Billy will tell you, if she remembers this, she will tell you, I volunteered 6-8 times to, look, we could talk about this another time, just tell me about y'all. I wasn't going there to try to trap them into a Bible lesson. And I tried at least a half a dozen times to stop. But her and him both went, no, we want to know. Well, I keep giving them an out. And when we're walking out of the restaurant, they're still wanting to know. Then we stand out at the cars. So what I'm saying is, if I'm saying anything, I don't voluntarily correct everything I hear. But if you ask me, most of the time I won't give you an out. I'll just tell you what you ask. But that time I thought, you know what, we want to get to know her, let's do this. I still to this day don't know the rest of that story. But anyway, I'm just saying, is it because I'm afraid? Are you kidding me? Of course not. Is it because word might get around town that I don't believe that? I don't care. It's going to get around eventually. I'm not trying to put that off. It's just that I don't feel obligated to just insert myself into everyone's business. You know, people don't like that. I've done that before. And people don't like that. But if they ask me, I'll tell them. I think that's only fair. I'm not telling you what to do. Those of you that like to interject when you hear something, help yourself. But don't come and tell me the story about how they got mad at you, because I'm already telling you now they're going to be mad at you. Don't do that. But whatever you want to do. All right, now why am I getting in that? Is to say, why did I tell you that story? I told you that story because I was saying you don't have to feel obligated to do that. You're going to hear a lot of things, all right? In the course of this world, certain things are just going to become commonly how people think about stuff. You don't have to feel obligated to say anything about it. But for these three things, it's different. Those three things I cannot let pass. Because all this other stuff that not just people believe, but the way the world is, those things will not in and of themselves bring about a godless work. Satan learned through what happened at Sodom and Gomorrah and through what happened in a couple of other places. He learned that there were three things that were needed to bring the world to a state of godlessness. And so when we get to Romans 13, we're going to be asked to cast off the works of darkness. And the way that gets done is by disassociating ourselves from those things and making it clear that we're not approving of that or a part of that. Now, you can do that in your own way, but God's not asking you to get a sign and picket. He's not asking you to go protest. He's not asking you to do any of that. But He is saying that we need to distance ourselves and disassociate ourselves from these three issues. We'll cover them in Romans 13. Right now, they'll just be a distraction. But those are the specific works of darkness. But when it comes to a believer now that is getting, and by the way, the course, as you answered correctly, the course of this world is engaging everyone. Let me ask you this, is it including believers? Absolutely. He really wants it. And so you know what churches do? Because of the pressure of that, and to remain relevant, they adapt themselves and their services and the things they teach to line up as much as possible with the world. That way it makes it compatible. I'm not really worried about becoming compatible with the world. That's not ever a concern for me. What is a concern for me is that the folks that come here get edified unto godliness so that they're equipped for their heavenly vocation. That is a concern to me. The world is not going to like that, and most of the Christian world is not going to like that. I get it. And that also means that you, because of this, will come under criticism. At some point in the future, you will come under criticism. And it will be first this, attack the message, and then this, attack you, and lastly it'll be to discredit you. I'm just telling you that is the way that is going to go. All right, so, and so I got off of that by saying there is an aspect of the course of this world that no matter where you live in this world and what kind of culture you're a part of, no matter what the norms of society are, there is something that will appeal to you, and it will attract you, and if you ever step out of line with it, there will be pressure exerted to bring you back into line. It wants to produce a godless world, and we've been under it our whole lives. So now, with that being said, what I want to do is I want to show you what Paul is talking about in his epistles. Let me just look here. How much time have I got left? Oh, no, not going to do it. Okay, so let me just set it up, and we'll do this when we come back. Now, you have the notes. Let me explain to you what you have. That's really all I have time left to do. When we get through with this, you are no longer going to look at Romans to Philemon the same way. Now you will see it for what it is. And what I mean by that is, those books are written with that progression in order. And the doctrine that is given to you in those books is talking to you about, well, let me just do it like this. Satan starts off with the course of this world, and then one day you get saved. And when you do, Satan's number one objective for you is what? That's right. He doesn't want you to understand the truth of the doctrine that pertains to you. Is he okay with you integrating Israel's doctrine? Sure he is. He prefers that. Because if that's what you like, if you like the Bible and if you like those religious things, then he just wants, and you're not going to be a Hindu or a Buddhist or a Muslim, then what he wants you to do is he wants you to get the wrong version of this. So he's going to try to put you back in Israel's program. And Paul talks about that all over the Scripture. But the point is, so you have something, this is for everyone, the course of this world, but then there is another generalized attack against anyone who gets saved to make sure they don't come to understand the real truth of who they are in Christ, of who they are as a member of the body of Christ, of what we're going to be doing in eternity, and what it will take in order for us to function up there. He wants all of that to remain a mystery. He wants all of that to remain a secret. But when you begin to learn the doctrine contained in the book of Romans, what you have then, by the way, are we already in the book of Romans? Yes. Then this is going to get itself underway. Phase 1 of the policy of evil. And that is going to start with the Romans doctrine. And as you go through that, what you'll find is you're going to learn things that will put you at odds with most of the religious people in your circle of family and friends. That's why I gave you that little tidbit earlier. Don't feel obligated to get into an argument with everybody about everything. If they ask you about it, even then, I think you just need to read the situation a little bit about how far you want to go with that. Don't start off your answer with, y'all are all morons and none of you have a clue. As true as that might be, that is not the Dale Carnegie way of winning friends and influencing people.
Isn't it true that things that God doesn't like, we're supposed to feel the same way about it?
That's right.
In other words,
His table of likes and dislikes are going to be written on your heart, yes.
Yeah, and if there's something that really upsets him, then it should upset us too.
That's correct.
It's supposed to be quiet.
That's right. And that would be these. Yes. Yes, you're absolutely right. Now look, as a son, do you have the liberty to interject something anytime? I mean, even if you think it's just horrendously bad, and you go, look, I'm just not going to allow that to stand. Sure, you can, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. There may be one of what Clifford said. He was saying what God doesn't like, that's supposed to be what we don't like. His likes and dislikes are supposed to be in us. And that's true. So we would respond like He would. And that's true. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. Sometimes that does mean saying something. Yes, it does. And that's what I'm saying. You just kind of have to read all of those situations on your own and determine. Most of the time when I hear things, I just don't comment on them. I figure later, you know what, they'll hear it and they'll learn it.
Well, that's all the way I always thought, just to avoid confrontation, just don't say anything. But then we went through that knowledge where
Right.
you feel the same way and
Right.
react the same way. Well, I'm obligated.
Well, then you are. That's right.
Yeah.
Right. But it just kind of depends on what it is. If I can throw my good friend Mark under the bus here for a moment. When I learned about sonship and I was traveling around telling everybody in my family about it and folks that I knew, Mark lived up in Nebraska at that time. And so I called him up and I said, hey, I want to talk to you about something that I have seen over in the book of Romans. And here's what he said to me. Hey, when we were at the church in Austin, we went through the book of Romans. I pretty much got that. I said, okay. And I didn't argue with him. I just said, okay. But you know what? To his credit, because he's such a good guy, he called me up, I don't know, a couple of months later, maybe a month and a half or 2 months later, I don't remember. And he said, tell me again what you were saying about that. And I said, okay, there's a bunch of stuff on the website, go look at that. And then he just started devouring all of that. After he came down here, we've had several conversations in which he recounted that. He said, remember when I told you I already had all that? And I said, yeah. He said, you were thinking, no, you don't, weren't you? I said, yeah. He said, but you didn't say anything. I said, no, but I just didn't. Is there another situation where I would say something? Yeah, you would. So, yeah, that's your point, right? Okay, so look, the beeper went off. So look, let me just set this up for you. Because really, what we're going to do next week is going to open your eyes about what really is sitting in Romans to 2 Thessalonians. That's as far as I'm going to take it. Because when you move from Romans into 1 Corinthians, there was a time, because the Corinthians ran off track, remember? And Paul writes 1 Corinthians to get them back on track. And then once they do, then he writes 2 Corinthians. But look, I didn't understand everything I really needed to understand about not only what is sitting in those books, but the order that they are in. Yes, it's a progressive education, yes. But it's not just that. It's more than that. It is that, but it's more than that. What you're going to find is everything sitting from Romans to 2 Thessalonians is equipping us to deal with the progressive attacks of the policy of evil as they come in 2 rounds. So you have the policy of evil, round 1, which is attack the message, attack the messenger, and discredit the messenger. And then you have the policy of evil, round 2, in which it starts all over again, which it attacks the message, but not with the same attacks as here, but now with an advanced tactics. It begins to attack the message, and then it begins to attack the messenger, and then it begins to discredit the messenger. In fact, those first 2 rounds of the policy of evil actually take you from the book of Romans to the book of Colossians. And what you're being taught, the doctrine that is causing you to mature in Christ, the doctrine that is building on itself, is actually in response to the attacks of the policy of evil. That's actually what's sitting there. So, for instance, when someone goes over to the book of Philippians, or when someone goes over to the book of Galatians, what they do is they just kind of look at those books like they're sitting over there off to themselves. Every book is just to itself, and it's just giving you some information. Here's what's actually happening. In the book of Galatians, there are 8 categories of attacks that Satan is going to bring against you, and Galatians is outlining all 8 categories of attacks. So when you get to round 2, and by the way, just so that you understand, this is the Galatians, that is, I'm sorry. Did I say that right? That's not right. I'm sorry. My mistake. I was going to do that, and can I just write over it? Look, sorry. 2 Corinthians, not Galatians, 2 Corinthians. That's the 8 categories of attacks that come against you in this round. Round 1 of attack the messenger. When you get to Philippians, you have 8 categories again, but you know what that is? That's round 2 of attack the messenger. These are way more advanced than these are. Now remember, I taught you early on, and I did get that right, you are never attacked above where you are in the education. He's not allowed to do that. But what you need to see is that the attacks, and so what do you really have? Now I'm going to take it through 2 Thessalonians for you, but what you really have is the means to deal with every phase of the attacks in round 1 and round 2, and when you get to Thessalonians, now you're talking about another kind of attack in Thessalonians. When you see this, you're going to understand. Now look, I'm not going to take you through all the details in it, because if I did, we'd be in this for a month in just the outline. But I do want to take a Sunday and take you through so that you understand what you're looking at here is what you're going to need as you progress in your sonship education to be warned about what attacks are coming, the form in which they'll take, and the doctrinal remedy for them. In other words, that doctrine that we talked about today that you want to take from your head to your heart, that is the doctrine that is going to armor you against those attacks so that you don't become victimized by the policy of evil. But see, we don't look at those books that way. When someone looks at the book of Philippians, now look, there are some things that are in there all right. Rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. So they say Philippians is the rejoicing book. I feel like someone just said, pray that God watches over us while we travel. You know what? There's so much missing out of your understanding if that's what you say, because here's where that comes in. The real issue is to be able to go through all 8 categories of those attacks just like the Lord Jesus so that you can rejoice in the midst of that. See, everybody wants to say, Paul was in prison, but he said rejoice. That's the way I got taught it in Bible college. I still remember it. Paul was in prison, and he wasn't up in the good part. He was down in the dungeon part. He was probably chained to a wall. There's rats running around. It was damp and cold and black and white TV. And, they're doing all the things they can to try to make you understand how terrible it was. And yet, he was rejoicing in the Lord. You know what you get out of that? Oh, so when something terrible is happening, I'm just supposed to act as happy as I can act. But see, that would be you. Remember when I said to you in the first session, is this you trying to produce it? Or is this something the doctrine has actually produced in you? Is it the human version or the godly version? Well, see, here's what you get taught in Philippians. the doctrines that actually produce a true, not, man, I'm really suffering here, but I'm smiling because I'm told I'm supposed to rejoice. That doesn't do much for you. It will just take you so far until finally you will succumb to the attack.
But if you truly felt that way, there's no way.
Then you become more than a conqueror.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's what he's trying to produce. So this is about, what I want to do is take you through the doctrinal progression, because when you see that, I know the buzzer went off, so I'll quit after I say this. Y'all are so cynical. It's so hurtful. Okay. When I was going to teach you about adversity praying, because that's the next thing on the list, I was going to take you to something sitting in the book of Philippians. Because, as you'll see when we go through it, sitting in the book of Philippians is each one of those categories of attack, not just the warning about it, but the doctrinal remedy for it. And you get a space in which you get to, I think this is right. If I'm a couple of verses off, you'll get it corrected next week. Philippians chapter 4, all verses 1 through 5, and then Philippians chapter 4, verses, is it 10 or 14? I'm going to get it wrong just because I'm trying to do it out of the top of my head. But let's say that goes through 12. This is not going to be exactly right, but through the end of the chapter. What you have from Philippians 1, let's do it this way. From Philippians 1 all the way to chapter 4, verses 1 through 5, then you get a little bit of a break, and then from 13 to the end of the chapter, that's how much of it is talking about the 8 categories. What you have is all of that is talking about the first 7 categories of suffering. Then there's a break, verses 6 to 12, or 6 to 10, or 6 to something, and then you pick it up in 4:13 and go, and that's the 8th category. What's sitting in the middle of that is the formula of prayer that tells you how to pray in the midst of those adversities. And that's what I was going to show you when we got to adversity prayer. But when I realized what was happening, when I looked at that and realized what was happening, I realized that what was sitting in the middle here was praying about these. The ones that will not go away until you quit. You will get relief if you quit. That was about dealing with that. But I also needed to tell you about these. How do we get comfort in these? So when we get to adversity prayer, I'm going to have to make a difference between those, right? Because these may go away on their own, or they may get better, or they may not, or you may die. These, as long as you're in it, they're only going to get worse. So you're going to have the doctrine to be able to continue to deal with them. I was going to teach you about dealing with the sufferings of this present time out of Philippians chapter 4, and that would not have been accurate. So I want to show you what I have come to understand about what is sitting in these epistles. No wonder Paul talks about enduring hardness as a good soldier of Jesus Christ and wrestling not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, and warring a warfare. No wonder he uses that kind of terminology. Everything that is sitting in Paul's epistles is, at the end of the day, equipping you for the continued phases of the policy of evil. And instead, we put a different spin on it so everybody will like it. Philippians is the rejoicing book. Woo! And you know what? I think Satan is just tickled to death with that, because you are no danger if you think that's what that is about. So I'm going to pull the curtain back next week, and I'm going to show you this. So if you're a little bit chicken, I'm saying that, and I feel bad about saying that now, because Bud will be working next week, and you'll all look at him and go, yep, he's chicken. All right. Go to work with Bud next week, if you're a little bit chicken. Because this is going to change how you look at these epistles. Now you will really value them for what they are. This is not just a bunch of books over there that just have a bunch of goody instructions in them. This is going to be your ability to fight, as Paul said, I have fought a good fight. This is going to be the instructions on how to do that. And so that's where we are. So that's what we'll do next week when we look at that. I promise you, you will have never seen anything like this before. I don't care who you've watched. You won't have seen this. You're going to see it. You're going to know it. And now we'll look at this differently. This is going to be a lifeline for us. All right, let's have a word of prayer, and we'll be done. Heavenly Father, we do love you with all of our heart, and we want to love you more. We are grateful that you have justified us unto eternal life. Now, we didn't do anything to deserve that. We certainly didn't. And we didn't do anything to get it. But you gave it to us as a free gift of grace, and we are really grateful for that. And then along with that, Lord, comes a calling. And we want to respond to that calling. And we understand there's an enemy that is posed against us, and that he, if we're not prepared, will be successful against us. And it is our desire, Lord, to live a life that brings you glory and is able, Lord, to bear fruit unto righteousness. Now, thank you for this group of people and what it is that we have committed ourselves to together as a body. And may we, Lord, prepare ourselves for the ages to come, in which we're given the glorious privilege and honor of being part of the body of Christ in the heavenly places. Thank you for that. In Jesus' name, amen.